Next, we will have a talk by Suinan Zhang, who is a PhD student at University of St. Andrews.
Yes. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. So Suinan will talk about the gas kinematics around high mass stellar cores.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Suinan Zhang, a PhD student at the University of St. Andrews, working with Dr. Claudia Signowski. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about the work today. Today I'll be talking about gas kinematics around the high mass prestellar core candidate G11 MM2. In this talk, I will first give a brief introduction about massive prestellar core, which you might have heard about yesterday. And then I will talk about the target G11 MM2 and present our AMA observations. I will then talk about present some initial results, including Gaussian decomposition, hierarchical clustering, and a rough estimate for the mass inflow rate. So the formation of the high mass stars has not been fully understood yet. The key questions remain in this field include how do massive stars gain their mass, and from what scale does high mass stars assemble their mass? The core accretion models propose that the initial conditions of high mass star formation are the self-gravitating, centrally condensed cores with radii of about 0.1 parsec, so-called massive prestellar cores. These cores contain all the materials required to form a single massive star or a small multiple system. G11MM2 is one of the few high mass prestellar core candidates identified to date. So G11MM2 is located in the massive protocluster called G11 at the distance of 3.37 kiloparsec away. And here I'm showing the ALMA 1.05 millimeter dust continuum of the G11 protocluster. Here you can see MM2 is here. And just 0.10 parsec away, there's a proto-O-type star MM1 here. So MM2 has been observed with sublimiter array SMA and VOA. So the top left panel is showing the Spitzer 3-color image overlaid with SMA contours. The black contours are the 1.3 millimeter dust continuum. The red and blue contours are the red shifted and blue shifted lobes of the outflows traced by 12CO322 transition. The magenta crossings are showing the locations of the class 1 methanomeasures, while the green diamond showing the locations of class 2 methanomeasures, and the cyan diamond here showing the class 2 water measure. The top right panel is showing the comparison of the molecular species of MM1, the proto-O-type star, and MM2 detected with SMA. And the bottom left panel is showing the centimeter observations taken with VOA. To summarize briefly, no outflow, no maser, no sub-millimeter line emissions are detected at MM2, and there's no centimeter continuum detected around MM2, which means there's no ionized gas there. Moreover, the physical properties inferred from the SMA continuum are very extreme. MM2 contain more than 30 solar masses within central 1000 AU, and the column density is above 10 to the 25. The number density is above 10 to the 9. The dust temperature inferred from SED feeding is between 17 to 19 Kelvin. These properties show MM2 is massive, centrally condensed, compact, and cold, which means it is probably a massive prestellar core. However, without light emission detected around MM2, it's difficult to understand how MM2 is connected to its environment. For example, like, does MM2 accrete mass from larger scale or not? To investigate the relationship between MM2 and its environment, we observe MM2 with ALMA targeting the N2H plus 4 to 3 line. This transition has an upper energy level of 44 Kelvin and a critical density of 10 to the 6, which, so it's preferentially a dense gas tracer. So here I'm showing a summary of the ALMA data. Briefly speaking, we achieve about half arcsecond resolution, spatial resolution corresponding to about 2000 AU and the 0.2 kilometers per second spectral resolution. The maximum recoverable scale is about 5 arcsecond. So here I'm showing the N2H plus moment maps overlaid with the 0.8 millimeter continuum contours here. So MM2 is sitting in the center of this image and MM1 here. So the integrated intensity map on the left panel is showing extensive N2H plus emission in MM2's environment. The intensity weighted velocity moment 1 map on the right panel, however, suggests a very complex kinematics in this gas. So again, the moment I'm showing the integrated intensity map overlaid with the continuum contours. The insets are showing the N2H plus spectra extracted at the local peaks of the integrated intensity maps to the north and the south of MM2. So what we can see here is that the N2H plus data has very complex spectral structure, so not like a single Gaussian structure. And also it displays a strong spatial variation from the north to the south of MM2. So to analyze the kinematics within this gas using N2H plus data, we conduct Gaussian decomposition to the N2H plus data cube using a semi-automated feeding package called Scouse. So the left panel is showing the example of a spectrum fitted with 2 Gaussian velocity components. On the right panel, I'm showing the plot of the number of components fitted at each pixel. So to summarize, we fitted about 40,000 spectra and obtained about 100,000 velocity components in total. On average, about 2.2 components are fitted per pixel, or spectrum. We then conduct hierarchical clustering of all these fitted velocity components based on their intensity, central velocity, and velocity dispersions. This clustering is done using a Python package called Acorns. So on the left panel, I'm showing a dendrogram of showing the result of the clustering. So dendrogram is the graphical representative of the hierarchical structure of the dataset. Acorns identified velocity and position coherent clusters, and we call it trees. And these trees are plotted in the dendrogram with different colors. And some of these trees contain substructures, which are referred as branches and leaves. Among these trees, we identified 8 dominant trees, which describe or include more than 60% of the data points. And the right panel is plotting the 8 dominant trees in the position velocity space. So it shows that the superposition of multiple gas streams in this region. So in the rest of this talk, I will be focused on tree 0, which is the most dominant tree. Tree 0 includes more than 20% of the data points, and these velocity components have the highest peak intensity. So the left panel is showing the centroid velocity map of tree 0. So what we can see here is the clear velocity gradient along this filamentary structure, and MM2 is sitting roughly in the middle of the velocity gradient. A possible explanation for this velocity gradient is a filamentary accretion flow. So which means the velocity gradient is caused by gas infalling into MM2. if we look at the velocity dispersion map and the intensity map of tree zero, an interesting feature is the elevated velocity dispersions at the locations with strong intensity. So the yellow, orange, reddish part on the right panel image. So so this feature indicates the enhanced or elevated turbulence, which is probably caused by the interaction between the infalling gas and the dense structures. If so, this feature could also work as another evidence of the accretion flows. So we pick up a branch of the tree zero, which is affiliated with MM2 here in the center. So yeah, so the left panel again plot the central velocity map of this branch. We measured a velocity gradient along this branch to be about 8 kilometers per second per parsec. The mass of this branch is roughly about 60 solar masses. So assuming this velocity gradient is caused by filamentary accretion flow, we could derive a mass inflow rate using a very simple cylindrical model, assuming an inclination angle of 45 degrees. The mass inflow rate is estimated to be about 5 times 10 to the minus 4 solar mass per year. This we want to say that this value is comparable to the other mass inflow rate measured in other high mass star forming regions. So the free fall time of MM2 was estimated using the SMA data before, and the numbers is very small, suggesting a very short free fall time, which is 10 to the 3, 1,000 a year. So we want to note that there are some caveats in this free fall time estimates, as for example, the uncertainties of the dust temperature, and also this work didn't consider opacity correction for the density estimation. But for quick and rough estimate, using this 1,000 a year, we can obtain about 0.5 solar masses that will be channeled to MM2 by this accretion flow over one free fall time.
2 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'm on the summary slide. So to summarize, we discover extensive N2H plus 43 emission around the high mass Prestellar core candidate G11 MM2. We conduct Gaussian decomposition and hierarchical clustering to analyze the gas kinematics around MM2. We discover a velocity and position coherent cluster in the N2H plus emitting gas, which displays a clear velocity gradient and is possibly caused by filamentary accretion flow. We derive a mass inflow rate of about 5 times 10 to the minus 4 solar mass per year using a cylindrical model. And about half a solar mass could be channeled to MM2 by this accretion flow over one estimated free fall time. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much. This is really interesting work. For me, it was really amazing to see that two sources which are next to each other have such diverging molecular line properties. So this is really good to see the analysis that you have done.
Thanks.
We have time for a couple of questions.
Yes, so we have first just about the dashed contours in slide 9. Do they correspond to 3 and 5 sigma negative emission, or maybe you can show again the?
Sorry.
In slide 9.
This one?
Yes. So there was a question about the negative emission.
Yeah.
Negative contours.
So, sorry, can you repeat that?
The negative contours.
Yeah, so sorry, I didn't mention that when I talk about this. So the negative contours are showing the negative balls in the N2H plus dataset. So it's not, yeah, it's basically showing the spatial filtering short spacing problem of this dataset.
Yes. So I have another question here. Could another possible explanation for the high velocity dispersion region in the N2H plus moment2 map be a multiple velocity components along the line of sight, which result the moment2 procedure to overestimate the line width? If you have multiple velocity components in the line of sight, maybe your dispersion is not really meaningful, but just biased by this.
So I'm not sure I understand the question. So this velocity dispersion is, so this is the velocity dispersion map of tree 0, and tree 0 is a result of hierarchical clustering. So we have already disentangled the multiple velocity components along this region. You
argue that this is really a physical dispersion, not just biased because of multiple velocity components.
No, because this is showing a velocity dispersion map of a single tree, so not the bulk of this emission.
Okay, good. I have more questions. So MM2 being so young and so poor in lines, what molecules do you think we could try to search for to study the properties of the core itself? Something like simple deuterated molecules, or?
That's a very good question. So yeah, MM2 is full of lines. Like this observational setup was originally targeting H2D+, but we didn't detect H2D+ at this region, and fortunately got the N2H plus 43 emission. To go further, I am thinking of maybe we could targeting at some N2D+. So using the deuteration of N2H plus to see whether we could find out more about this region.
Mm-hmm. I hope I have time for 2 more questions.
Yeah, we have time for at least 1 or 2 questions.
Are the gas accretion features also found in other clusters or trees?
Not all of them. So yeah, tree 0 is the most dominant and probably the most interesting tree in our result. We see other velocity gradients. We also see velocity gradient in a few of other trees, but those trees are not especially associated with MM2 or offset from the continuum filamentary structure. So yeah, we need some further investigating of those trees, but those trees would not affect our main conclusion about tree 0.
Mm-hmm. And maybe I have another one here. So the map of the N2H plus emission shows a decrease of emission toward the center of the dust source. So do you know if this is due to self-absorption or absorption toward the continuum source? Or could it be related to depletion due to high densities and low temperatures?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, we do observe the absorption feature at the continuum peak. And yeah, that is clear. That is shown by the integrated intensity map. Yes, we haven't have a very good explanation for that absorption yet. Yeah, what we did before is we make an integrated intensity map of that absorption, and we see a velocity gradient on the integrated intensity map across the MM2's continuum peak. So what that means, we're not sure yet.
Well, that's very interesting. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is really an interesting source, so there will be quite a lot of questions about it. Thank you for the great discussion.
Thank you for the questions.